Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
Got a question for you, sir.
All right.
Do you like your vinyl like you like your coffee?
Straight black.
Sure, why not? Not mixed up with red or swirly or anything like that?
I just want to have that nice black coffee
There
like
you
vinyl.
go.
And welcome to two guys talking about records that sometimes are black and sometimes are colored. Who
What the
knows?
heck?
It's always a crapshoot whenever we go out and buy a record. I am Steve. I am a record collector.
And my name is Jim, and I own a record store. And I'm not a coffee drinker, Steve, so that wouldn't work on me. But what tastes better, black coffee, or you mix those colors up a little bit?
Well, actually, I like a little cream in it, and I do put down a pot of coffee every morning. So
More
you
than
get up
enough
at
for both of
4
us.
a.m. Yeah.
Well, this week, if you have not guessed, we got a lot on our plate this week, so we probably should just dive right in. But coming up in a little bit, we have got week 2 of our Vinyl Madness in March. No copyright infringement intended. And so we'll cover those 16 albums are getting knocked down to 8, and there's a couple of surprising things in there.
Yeah, really is. It's pretty interesting. Some not so surprising. We figured out what our viewers listen to,
Yep.
but
And that ought to be fun. And then the main topic today, we're going to talk about colored vinyl. It's from the standpoint of the store owner, it's very popular, Steve. As a collector, I like it sometimes. Is that wishy-washy enough for you?
yeah, but I get what you mean.
Yeah.
It's just once in a while you're surprised and it turns out to be black vinyl. And you go, "What's
Really?
this?
Yeah. Why would
That's
they do
different."
something weird like this? Black is a color.
Yeah,
so,
yes, it is.
so we'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. I've also got a couple of other, I've got an update on the Allison chains, and I've got a conundrum, a filing conundrum I want to toss out at you, Steve. See what you think.
All right.
All right. But
Okay.
first, because this is the Vinyl Community Podcast, we like to cover our most recent pickups and additions to the collection. How were you this week? Did you slow down a little bit? You still coming off that high of the big VC meet a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I went to a record store because I was picking up an album for somebody else, and I found a couple things. Then the mail dropped me a couple albums from Fuzz Club. My Fuzz Club membership came in, and I pre-ordered one. We'll just start there. One I pre-ordered was a group called Skloss. S-K-O
SS?
Skloss. Yeah, Skloss. So
Sklos?
Sklos or something. It is a duel, and they are it's a debut album from Austin by Glasgow. It's a space gaze duel, blending heavy psychedelia, post metal drones, meditative drums, and raw distorted riffs across these 8 equally pulverizing and ethereal tracks. So
That
I don't know.
seems,
You figure that one out.
that is up several alleys of yours, I think. You
I
can't figure
think
out which way
so.
to go.
Oh my God. And it comes on. It comes on. Look at that colored
Oh, that's
vinyl.
very pretty.
Wow. Yeah, that is really nice. So yeah, Skolos.
Sklos?
Skolos.
Sklos.
Who knows?
We'll,
I,
we'll,
I
uh,
do not know.
we'll be corrected.
Yep. And then from Fuzz Club, we have from the group Pretty Lightning, and this is called Night Wobble, and that's pretty cool looking. Uh, this comes on. I like to give stuff that makes Jim have to look.
Yeah.
So very, very bright.
Gee, thank you.
And yep. And this one says Night Wobble is the 6th full length album from the German duel. So another duel, Pretty Lightning. 13 tracks of down tempo instrumentals coursing through dusty spaghetti western psychedelia, derived desert blues, library music, and 70s progressive.
Wow.
Always cinematic, but shot through a trippy off-kilter moment. So, in a sense of an alien, it's surreal to the widescreen panoramas. I have no idea, Jim.
I want
It's
to know
cool sounding.
who's writing the hype stickers for Fuzz Club on this. So,
Exactly.
yeah, then we'll call it this, man.
It's just, what the hell? How could you say no? And then I found on the wall. That's an OG of of Psycho Candy from Jesus and Mary Chain.
Cool.
One all-time favorite group. And after I brought it home, I realized I had an OG. But I did not have the inner sleeve, man. So there we go. We'll call that an upgrade.
And that was
Okay.
off of a wall purchase, so you paid a
Yeah.
lot for a sleeve.
I paid a lot for a sleeve. It wasn't bad though. Overall, the
No,
pricing was good on
Oh,
that.
good.
Um, You're the Cat, a
Oh,
MoFi.
cool.
L. Stewart, I used in my first collection. I had tons of his albums, but there's only two I listened to. You're the Cat and Time Passages, and I really, really like them. So I have MoFi for Time Passages, but not You're the Cat. So we are now complete with L. Stewart. I am a completist of two albums.
Real quick on the Al Stewart stuff, I've got not a MoFi, but I've got a Year of the Cat in there too, and I think it's really easy to kind of shrug him off based on the two popular songs from those two albums, both Time Passages
Mhm.
and Year of the Cat. They're both kind of little mellow, they're a little 70s schlocky, but the rest of those albums, they've got some good rock in them.
They do. L. Stewart, he wanted to be a rocker. That's what he wanted. But he had this softer voice. And so he kind of got put into that soft rock category. What I've always liked is he's a heck of a story writer.
Yep.
He takes history, puts it to song, and it's interesting.
It's kind of up there with the
And
likes of a Harry Chapin, who, again, but on the folk side, was really kind of pigeonholed into that mellow folksy.
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And the final one I got is Blues Image
Oh, cool.
and the album Open. Uh, because there's a one hit. I don't know. Maybe these guys had one hit. I don't know. They had a number of albums. They could have, but Ride, Captain, Ride upon your mystery ship.
That's their biggie.
Yep, there we go. So to me, it's a one hit wonder, which a big. So, yeah, my whole thing of not buying any of them has really failed Jim completely.
It's March. You've barely lasted off of that New Year's resolution.
Exactly. But I will say this whole album is very, very
Oh
good.
yeah, yep.
This album rocks. Yeah.
Listened to that. I think I've got a copy of that too myself. But yeah, it's a good bluesy rock blues album.
Yeah. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to see. Well, on my side, I've got a fun one, and as is usually the case, Steve, when you see these, you're going to say, maybe I should. What do you think?
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I had taken note that there was a new Bob Mould album coming out. Mentioned that on our new release show, and I think I let you know ahead of time too, because we share a little bit of affinity going back to the Husker Du stuff and Sugar and his solo stuff and those damn box sets.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one that is not in a box set, but brand new stuff from Bob Mould I got. It's called Here We Go Crazy. And it's a good album. I'll show you the color here in a second. Very cool color. Gatefold. Really neat stuff in there. And it is on, and I forget what they call it. They call it smush colored vinyl.
Swoosh.
But it's
That's very
blue and black. That side A is just, the process, which I think you're going to talk about in an upcoming video on your channel about how they make some of this stuff is incredible. But this Bob Mould, and I hope I don't rub, we have to be careful because sometimes the artists do end up seeing these somehow, as we found out. But Bob Mould to me is a lot like AC/DC. And I'm not meaning in the fact that he rocks like AC/DC is going to rock, but it's kind of how can I say this without being offensive? It's a dependable sound.
Yeah.
AC/DC has joked that, all of our albums sound the same. And I don't want to say that all of Bob Mould's stuff sound the same, but pretty much all of them have this good familiarity. His guitar style is unmistakable. His vocals are there. His songwriting is solid. And in some cases, when an artist does that, it's reliable and it's nice and it's a good addition to have in the collection. This one does rock. Right off the bat, I was talking to somebody else in the store about it the other day. I said, well, let me put it on for you. I've got my open copy. And I said, man, this thing rocks. And I'd only listened to it once. And I put that first song on side A on it. It was one of the more mellow ones that kicks it off. I'm like, well, take my word for it. He kicks it into gear here shortly. So, but brand new stuff. I do believe I should be able to find some good sound samples so you can listen to that, Steve, and decide if you'd like one.
His very first solo album, Workbook, was probably the most different one. That one really was mellow.
There was a lot of acoustic on that too, with See a Little Light and Workbook itself too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at that time, that was his first solo before going into Sugar, which kicked things up a notch, and then back to the solo. I think he was really trying to differentiate himself in the mid 80s there from the Husker Du sound with that acoustics.
Totally agree. Yep.
Great stuff. I mean, all the same, very, very cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Next up, I wish I could have found an OG of this because I think I've been looking for a while. I'm not a Kinks completist, but I think I'm getting darn close to that, Steve. They're little bit by little bit. So I picked up a copy of the Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society. Not an original like I'd hoped, but this one, what did I peg it out to? It's a 1980 Canadian reissue, but it sounds good. The songs are all there. It's in really nice shape. So I'm gonna hold this as to one of my earlier 70s Kinks albums that I'm still going to be looking for an OG for down the line. But this has got one of my favorite songs is on their Picture Book, is just a fun tune. Mm-hmm. And the other stuff's great too, but that's one of my favorites. So
Kinks is greatest hits for me.
Are they? Yeah, I probably should have gone that route too, but we'll see.
But you're working on that completist thing, so that's all right.
We'll see how that works. Next up, this one it's the cover is kind of toasted, but I'm going to count this in my Michigan stuff, even though obviously Harvey Mandel is only originally from Michigan, but he's played in Canned Heat, and there's some really good solo blues stuff. He's got a Record Store Day release coming up, one of these, but this is Righteous from Harvey Mandel. This one is from 1969. So kind of in the midst of that, or just after the Canned Heat era, as he goes through here. Lots of great, just guitar blues that he's known for on this. But again, the cover is pretty well toasted. A little water damage, but the vinyl is nice on this. And it was one of the Mandels that I don't have. So into the collection that one goes.
Yeah, very nice.
And then speaking of Michigan, finally, this did not come into the store. I had to I went out searching because I got a little bug up my backside with regards to Michigan stuff. And I picked up a copy of Map of the World. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys before. The name of the album is An Inch Equals 1,000 Miles. It's really kind of more of an EP than anything. These guys are from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And really, this was about the only thing they've ever done. I'm looking at Discogs here. They've got a 7-inch, a 12-inch EP of Hiroshima Girls from 1985. And then An Inch Equals 1,000 Miles was an album-ish that came out in 1989. And by say ish, what I mean is the fact that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 songs on it. But it's a very interesting sound. It's college radio music. And yes, I'm going to use that term. It's college radio music. Yep. It's not jangle pop, but it's just kind of a slower, lower with a female vocalist alternative. And it's very cool stuff. But I used to play this all the time back when I was in college at the radio station up in Marquette. And then one day they're on a compilation. I think that's what reminded me of it. And so I thought, you know what? I used to have this. I should go see if I can find another one. And it was super cheap. So I brought that into the fold, as it were. Fun stuff. And I haven't looked yet, but I think I can find I hope I can find a sound sample for that for you. So you can check that out.
That's it. So that's all we had this week. That means we got a whole lot more we have time to fill up, because usually half is me showing a bunch of albums.
I know. Well, I think we can do that this week without a problem. I've been told that the two of us can talk for an hour and still have change to spare if we really, really, really wanted to. As always, I will attempt to put together a Spotify playlist with songs from these that we're talking about, and some of the ones that we're going to be talking about down the line here with our colored vinyl as well. So make sure you look for that in the descriptions of both the YouTube channel or page of this and the description on the episode on Spotify as well. All right. How about an update, Steve?
Yep.
After much consideration, we have talked a few weeks back about this Allison Chains that came in, the Allison Chains Unplugged. And I did peg this as a 1992 French pressing, and we had a lot of discussion with Dave that day, and we heard from a lot of folks in the comments. Most of them kind of agreed with Dave in the fact that this is what was called dead stock that was just recently discovered, and that's how our customer ended up with 2 copies. We now have this copy in the store. It's mine to do with as I deem fit. It's probably going to find its way out to the shelves at some point, and I have yet to determine at what level, because early, really nice pressings of this are pretty heavy on Discogs. There was at least one comment saying that it was just a really, really good fake copy, a bootleg copy, but I just don't see it. I mean, looking at this and looking at how I've seen, counterfeit copies in the past, I don't think it is, to tell you the absolute truth.
Sure. Well, I know I have one original Allison Chains back there on my shelves that I got from Radio Wasteland, and
Right.
it's not cheap.
No, they aren't for whatever reason. Okay, next up, I've got a conundrum. I did this a while. I had a pair of these come in, I don't know, a year or two ago, and I put up a question. I think it was like a poll on our YouTube channel, and I got one measly response, and it was a little heated on this. But genuinely, I need to know, Steve. We did a whole episode, and perhaps we should revisit this, on how you file your records. Personally, and here in the store, I guess I'm a little bit odd as to my filing system, because I tend to put solo artists with the band in most cases.
Yeah.
Sometimes not. And I a lot of new people, I still get the questions, is Led Zeppelin under L or Z? Where do you... I get those questions. It happens. But you're not going to fault people. They're learning. These are people who are new to this. Maybe they've not been into something like that before. But typically it's by artist's last name, correct? You file it under Zappa, under Z for Frank Zappa, but the mother's all put in there because it's Zappa as well. Led Zeppelin under L because that's the name of the group. And wherever they go, Pink Floyd obviously under P, but where that goes. But if it's an artist, you go by their last name, comma, first name, and it files there. All right, Steve, what do I do here? I have got 2 Kenny G albums.
Well, I throw them in the dollar bin and not really worry about it.
Except our dollar bin is alphabetized, darn it. It's Kenny G. His last name is not G. That's his initial, if I remember correctly. But he's known as Kenny G. So it's a stretch. If you were gifted Kenny G albums, would they go under the K in your collection, or would they go under G?
In my collection, they'd go under G because his first name is still Kenny, damn it. It's like Alice Cooper. Does it go under A or C?
True, but Alice Cooper was the name of the group before it was just Alice Cooper.
His name, yeah, exactly.
Oh, I've got them under A still. Maybe I should rethink that. No, I take that back. I've got Alice Cooper under C for Cooper because it is his name. Now that I think of that, it's under C.
Yeah.
So I'm going to toss this at you as well, but okay, dear viewers, the obvious answer is going to be in the trash can, but where would you put Kenny G in your collection? I'm picking on Kenny G. There's lots of folks that love his musical stylings, right?
Sorry, TC.
Sorry. Where does it go? Under G for G, comma Kenny, or Kenny space G?
All right, so here's one for you that a lot of groups has the, and we put them under something else, but groups like Los Lobos or Los Bichos,
because
LOS, that's the, but do we put it under that L? Now I don't, but other people, Los Lobos, that one's easy. It's LOS, LOB. So, whoa.
You're close enough with that. But yeah, I get the point there. You drop the. Discogs did that a long time ago, too. They drop the and it goes by if the is the name. But, and I don't have any of these in my collection, then how would you file the?
Yeah. I have been to record stores that the is the first. All the thes are together. I mean, that's a
The
hell
T
of a
is this
section.
long. It's huge.
It's just, wow, there's a lot of the. I'm just going to collect thes.
Thus, that's a niche that we could talk about if you're bands that start with the. And then
Yeah.
that's not always the case because is it the Rolling Stones? And for the first album, it was the Pink Floyd. You know,
Yeah, that's
sauce.
true.
Yeah, Piper was the Pink Floyd, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So anyway, let us know what you think. I don't know what I'm going to do with the Kenny G. It's been sitting in the new releases, so I haven't had to worry about filing it, and nobody's bought them yet. So I don't know what I'm going to do if I have to file them.
Feel free, everyone, to tell Jim what to do with Kenny G.
Thanks. And if Kenny G is watching, where would you put yourself, Kenny? All right. Okay, Steve, we are now into week two of our self-created tournament. And
Yes.
this has been a lot of fun so far. The first week we have garnered, it's not a mountain, but for a modest podcast like ourselves, 70 votes. 70 votes going through those 16 albums. And just to refresh your memory, we each picked 16 albums that we considered to be essential, albums that we thought would do well in other people's collections. And I think at the time we did a little explanation of that, didn't we, Steve? We talked
Yeah,
about
we did.
why we think these albums would be good and why they should exist in there. So here's the bracket that I created. Let me call this up here. Here is our bracket showing those 16 albums that we picked. And just to make things a little more fair, Steve had 8 albums. I had 8 albums. Steve randomly chose the bracket listings for my 8, and I randomly chose his. So that way the pairings were just completely out there, and it was going to make it. And it was some tough choices. You know, I heard from my son, and he's like, "Wow." These are, how do you choose against this? And he voted against Permanent Waves. And I'm going to disown him soon. I'm
Yeah.
kidding, because he picked Pink Floyd. But
Well, we also learned that a lot of albums we think are essential, most of you have do not think so whatsoever.
no, so there is the surprises. So what we're going to do this week is let's narrow these suckers down to a great 8. You ready, Steve?
Yep.
Here,
Yep.
after 70 votes, here is what we are looking at. Let me go back up to bracket number 1, which saw on my side AC/DC going up against The Who, Back in Black up against Who's Next. And The Who wins out 56% to 43%, 56.5 to 43.5. So The Who's Next advances.
Cool.
And surprising for you, or your first bracket, the Beatles, Revolver versus Led Zeppelin?
As many people seem to really fawn over the Beatles, I think, as Jim and I talked about, we seem to have a very much a classic rock group of people
Yes,
watching
we
here,
do.
and so Zeppelin. I guess I'm not too surprised about that. I did have one of the more rocking Beatles albums there.
Yeah, I was going to
but
say that's not quite the early Beatles either. So that's going to
yeah,
be more in the
no,
psych rock realm of things.
yep,
But
exactly.
Led Zeppelin wins out, and
Blew them away.
65.7 to 34.3%. So I'll update our other charts. Okay, the second bracket for both of ours, Billy Strings, I love you, man, but sorry, it did not go your way against the Violent Femmes. And I think I mentioned I recommend Billy Strings because I think that over the test of time, this album's going to be an important one for people. I'd like to think so, at least. Highway Prayers, though, losing out to the Violent Femmes, self-titled, huge. 77.9 for the Femmes, to only 22 for Billy Strings.
So in 20 years when we do this, which I'll be very old, we will go back on what Jim's saying, and we're going to check that Billy Strings and see where that fits. So
Now,
let's plan on that.
your second bracket, for the longest time, I was kind of keeping you up to date on the voting as this happened. The
Yeah.
Sex Pistols were ahead of Boston for quite some time, and then that classic rock preference kicked in, and Boston wins it.
Yeah, the Boston fans came out in force the last couple days, and they said they will not have any of this being beat by the Sex Pistols, and thus they let their votes be known and their voices were heard.
So Boston advances, the Sex Pistols do not. Third bracket for me, this was the rough one. Pink Floyd Animals versus Rush's Permanent Waves, and Pink Floyd takes it 55% to 44.9, 55-1 to 44.9. I'm heartbroken, kind of. I like Animals, but you know how I feel about Permanent Waves.
Yep. Yep. It just blame Geddy Lee's voice, Jim. I'm sorry.
And you know what? That's okay. I'm still going to say it's essential, but apparently Animals is more essential. Now
Yeah.
your third bracket was, holy smokes, was this a close one? The
Yeah.
closest one, but Jazz
Hmm.
loses out by just about 0.7%.
Yeah. To the Velvet Underground, the band that nobody bought when they were around. But I guess it just shows. I mean, both of those are just two of my all-time favorite albums, and yeah, that really blew my mind. I thought maybe Miles would edge them. I have no problem with either one of them beating out the other, but yeah, that was pretty amazing. Real
That I think,
split.
yeah, that was the closest. But the Velvet Underground's moving forward to this eight, the final or the next
Yep.
bracket of eight, and finally the fourth batch. I picked a wild card here, Steve, in Tripping Daisy, and you drew it against Dave Brubeck's Timeout. So there is a jazz album still in there, but Tripping Daisy, what would you attribute that to? I mean, this is an album that I swear up and down by, and I think everybody should give it a try at some point and listen to this thing, but it just couldn't stand up to Brubeck.
No, it's just a, a lot of people don't know who they are. I really think it come in the '90s, they had the one hit
Yep.
and then kind of went. And if you weren't into really '90s rock, which again you see this classic rock thing, well, classic rock so far hasn't moved into the '90s.
That's right. Give it a few more years.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dave Brubeck's Timeout, the lone jazz one making it forward, but yeah, winning 69.6% to 30.4. So see you later, Firecracker.
Yep.
And then your fourth one, I don't know. How do you feel about this? These are two good albums, but Talking Heads really kind of took a spanking here.
Yeah, I classic rock. It gets just get back to Pink Floyd. "Wish You Were Here" is one of the all-time greatest albums. Talking Heads to me is essential, but that's more of a personal type of a thing. You don't see everyone having that in their collection. You're more apt to see a "Wish You Were Here." I'm not too surprised that they got spanked by that. Which is, I mean, again, I love "Wish You Were Here." I just think it's incredible. It kind of be interesting to see how Dark Side would have handled against everybody.
Yep.
Where
And
that ranks.
we didn't take any heat for not picking Dark Side, but I think we both explained ourselves well as far as why would we recommend something to a collection as essential that pretty much everybody already has in their collection as
Yeah,
essential.
yeah.
All
Hmm.
right. So this is what it means going into week 2, Steve. Are you ready?
Yep.
That means that you guys will get to vote again on this, and we would love to see this turnout maintained. Please do so. You got a week for the next round, but that means the Who's Next is going to go up against the Violent Femmes. I'll fix this graphic and send it out to you down the line, Steve.
I
That's
wonder.
that's an interesting one. We
Don't
won't
get
make
depressed,
predictions.
Jim.
All right. uh,
Okay.
And then on your side of the first bracket, oh no, your side of the first bracket, that means Led Zeppelin 4 is going up against Boston. That's going to be a
That-
toughie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the third one, Pink Floyd's Animals up against Dave Brubeck's Timeout. This one I don't see being much of a contest, but you never know
Nope. You're right.
where to go. And then it's going to get tough again. The Velvet Underground versus Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here" in the final one of your 8.
Wow.
Is that a
Man.
toughie also for you?
Yeah, that is. That's a rough one. Well, just again, if the classic rock crowd comes in, man, it's going to go Pink Floyd probably. But I mean, I was surprised Velvet did beat Miles.
Yep.
So
Conceivably, that means we get to the final 4. There could be 2 Pink Floyds going up against one another if that holds true.
yeah,
So
that'd be interesting.
we'll see where it goes. But yeah, folks, we do encourage you. Look for the link. It's a Google Doc. It's not going to track you or do anything or ask you to sign in or anything like that, but it'll be in the description of both our YouTube channel episode and the Spotify episode. You just click on that. You'll be taken to the Google Doc. You can go ahead and cast your vote on these great 8 albums. You want to call them 8 great albums.
Yeah.
How's that?
There
8
we go.
great.
Yeah.
8 great.
8 great.
And
That
that'll
sounds
carry us. That'll carry us through for the next week's part of the bracket, and we'll see where we go from there. Should be fun, but I would love to see the that turnout equaled or greater.
Yeah, agree.
I
It's a lot
think
of fun.
we'll keep tabs on the Electoral College too, Steve. Make sure that goes okay.
Yes, yes. Don't forget to get out and vote. You only got 1
Yes.
week. Get out and let your voice be heard.
Let it be heard. I don't know if there was any colored vinyl in that batch. I'm sure they've been reissued on color, of course, but
Yeah.
that takes us to our. How's that for a segue, by the way?
There we go.
Colored vinyl. This was just a kind of a thing Steve and I have been talking about, and I wanted to bring it up this week very specifically because I'm so impressed about that Bob Mould album and the way that this thing looks. Let me give that one more quick close up here for you guys to see, but I think it's a beautiful album the way that they put this thing together on that. And Bob Mould is pretty good for that. I've got several of his other albums, Steve, including those box sets. The box sets were all colored vinyl as well, but on that a few years back we had Sunshine Rock.
Yep.
And he puts them out on black vinyl. Here We Go Crazy was black vinyl also, but Sunshine Rock also had kind of that really neat theme that goes with the cover. And I think that might be key when you're looking at colored vinyl is how does that fit into the overall aesthetic of the album and its entire presence? Does that make sense?
There is some colored vinyl really is there to match up. When I was at Third Man Records, they were working. There was a group. They wanted their album cover had a certain blue on it, and they wanted that exact blue. And so Third Man was kept working, and they had this whole book of formulas. So how much of this color versus how much of this color they were putting in, and then they'd send the pictures to the group, and then they would look, no, not quite right. Do it again, and so they usually would press 5 albums at a time at that color, and then send them the photos, and they would decide. But it had to match exactly, and some do a pretty good job with that. And I know I got a few examples of that.
Occasionally you'll find some colored vinyl that you're scratching your head. It's like, why would you do that other than to just say it's a color variant? We've picked on Taylor Swift a lot for doing stuff like that, but she, I think, at least tries to make that match and to give a reason other than the fact that every time there's a release, there's 5-6 different color variants to work with. And it's not just her. There's a lot of bands that do that too.
Oh my God, yes. Going to Discogs on these new albums coming out, limited 200 only. That just means that color, then the next color. And some colors just take off in price. Everyone wants that color, while the other ones don't do anything, but yet it's the same limited pressings.
For artistic reasons, I will agree with this. For money grab reasons, some of it feels a little unnecessary as you kick in there. But now, colored vinyl goes way back. This is not by any means a newer phenomenon. I did a YouTube video several years ago on our channel, and I could not find the record. I've got it here in the store somewhere with me, Steve. But it's a 78 shellac from the 1930s that is colored. It's got like a marbling color to it. I don't even remember what it was, but to realize that type of experimentation with beyond just black goes back to, almost 100 years now is amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that they had the resources, they were able to, do that. It is. And I know I've seen people show 45s from the 50s that are colored. It's a rarity. But and again, the whole sound quality thing pops into all those, but it's cool.
And back then, I think that was a tremendously, obviously with shellacks and 78s, your sound quality is not going to be anything near what we're capable with today, even with that greater speed. But there obviously were problems with the sound quality because the ingredients, if you will, that they were using may not have been as pure. as or your quality control couldn't be as good as a black vinyl going into the 50s and 60s. But that stuff, again, it still existed. Um, I've got a couple of older ones. Can I show these off real quick?
Hmm.
They actually work with it. This one here is from Dave Mason. It's Alone Together. The whole album artwork is really kind of this neat concept. I've got to step back a bit and show you that it's like a trifold that matches all the way. It's got a die cut
Yeah.
trifold with Dave Mason. The inside is there too. And the vinyl, if you find one, there's a black vinyl variant out there, but it is a marbling colored vinyl that
Oh, wow.
matches kind of the aesthetic of the covers, the stylings of the cover from Dave Mason's Alone Together. Not the greatest sounding though, is what I've come to find out with this. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing. I've got another older one from Naz, Todd Rundgren's group, Naz. They put this out, 1969 on red vinyl.
Yeah.
This does not sound very good either, is the problem.
Sure.
But again, it kind of I don't know what the red has to do with this, but the Dave Mason at the very least matches that cover very nicely.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you remember the very first colored vinyl you got?
To tell you the truth, I do not. You might. Do you? Oh, Devo.
Evil.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. I do
When
now.
I bought this, I could not. I mean, it was like the coolest thing in the world. It's like, oh, wow, that's not black. This is amazing, and it blew my mind. And it actually, I guess it sounds okay. It's the only thing I've heard. I haven't heard anything on black on that, but yeah, that was my very first colored vinyl that I bought, and blew my mind.
Do you recall whether or not that's the first year pressing, or did they wait a year or two before they put Are We Not Men out
It
on
was
color?
first year pressing.
Very cool. I take that back. There's one that I didn't really buy it, but one of my first. We got an extra from the radio station, and it's the Dickies, Incredible Shrinking Dickies,
Uh-huh.
from 19. I'm going to look here, 79, 78, 79, and they put this out in yellow vinyl. My copy's really beat up. It's an old radio station copy.
Hmm.
I think it sounds great. So this is probably
Yeah.
one of my first color variants that I got because I've had this since about 88 or 89 now.
Sure.
And I played it the other day because we had a
Okay.
Dickies. We got a reissue in the store. So I got to hear their version of Paranoid again, which is great.
Yeah. I had, this is a Billy Strings album.
Oh, I'm jealous
And
now.
I figured that. That's why I'm going to show it every week.
Thanks.
But it's this blue. Okay, so what we are just talking about, the color to match the album, and they do a beautiful job with that.
Very
It
cool.
just has that midnight kind of look. And another neat one was this is from a group called King Buffalo, and really cool, kind of a stoner rock psych thing. But you see that deep purple here. I'll just go back. I'll just turn it upside down. It really does a nice job matching up with the album cover.
Very
And
cool.
I mean, yeah, I like when they do that. You see something. Of course, King Buffalo, it gets very very, very trippy. So yeah,
Well,
kind
it's
of
the
nice when they do
same
that.
thing with the Billy Strings. I forget the name of that album escapes me. I've got it on back order. I've had it on back order for some time now. But you picked that up at the show, and when I saw Billy Strings, I probably should have looked for that as well
Yeah.
and picked it up. Not all new vinyl pressings sound great in colored vinyl. And case in point,
Mhm.
a couple of years back, Greta Van Fleet, Michigan's own Greta Van Fleet, put out an album called Starcatcher. Lots of hype, lots of people interested in it. I'm still sitting on a couple copies of this. But they put out two variants of this at that point. A clear vinyl one, which is what I've got, and then they put out a clear with glitter inside of it.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
right away, the forums on Discogs, and there was a couple of other places, but the discussions on Discogs, and from my own personal experience, I actually had a customer bring back their copy, the glitter copy of Starcatcher, because it was noisy. So you've got a clear
Mhm.
vinyl version, which sounds good, and then the instant that they began putting the glitter inside of it, it created a noise that was just not going to do for a lot of people that bought it. And like I said, we had that at least one returned because of that, and they
Yeah.
traded it up for a clear vinyl copy.
It's almost like you're putting impurities into the vinyl.
In a
And
lot of
I mean,
cases.
it's yeah, and otherwise it's really this liquid. Well, it's that hockey puck that gets
Yep.
melted down, but now you have other stuff in there, and who knows? Is it rising up? Is it going down? Um, when and at the third when I was at Third Man, I'd asked him. I says, "Okay, colored vinyl. How's it sound now?" Because it always used to be it doesn't sound as good. And they go, they go, you really can't tell the difference except for clear. They still were struggling a little bit with clear not having as good of sound.
Hmm.
Well, a few weeks ago, I went to another record plant here in Denver and took a tour. Asked the same question: how is colored vinyl? How is clear? And they go, the clear goes sounds just like the black now. I says we don't have issues with the sound quality on clear. But at Third Man, they had talked about putting extra stuff in it
Yep.
can affect the sound, and they personally don't recommend doing that at all.
We did an episode a while back about gimmick vinyl, and that comes into
Mhm.
play here too, where it becomes more about the collectability of a certain type of gimmick than it does the listening experience of the vinyl. Flaming Lips were good for this by putting liquid or blood, and in
Yeah.
some cases, I think they were trying or they were talking about putting urine inside of one of their.
Yes, there
And
were.
I can't imagine that. I mean, the listening experience in that would probably be terrible, but that's not the point with that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about putting it on. It's about going, look at
Look,
this.
look at what
Someone
I've got.
peed in there.
I've got a couple of others that the Primus album, they're a concept album from a few years back. Well, very much, I guess, 2017. Desaturating Seven. The entire concept is about these color stealing goblins, if you will. They desaturate right down
Okay.
to the inside, and it's really tough to see. Let me see if I can zoom in on this here. The inside,
Oh
that's you
yeah.
there, of the jacket has printing in color, so that's all in there too. But then you get some really neat artwork on the inner sleeve. But then the vinyl itself is a splatter color, and I've read a lot of folks complaining about this, that the splatter color of the Primus one is just not great. I personally haven't noticed on this one because, well, A, it's Primus, so how
Yeah.
can you tell most of the time? But I've not had any problems with that, despite the fact that some people saying that one, the splatter vinyl creates it. And I've got several different splatter vinyl ones that I just don't notice any difference. Maybe
Bob
I'm
Mold
not
box
hearing it.
set.
Yeah, the box
Yeah,
set
Bob Mold
splatter.
box
Yep,
sets. It's all splatter mold.
yep, yep. The one thing that I do you have a couple more you want to kick into, or
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
note?
Look at good old
Oh,
King Gizzard, right?
I've got that one
Look
too.
at
Yes, that's a good one.
yeah. It almost looks like atomic cloud blowing up there. I hate that is it's pretty. King Gizzard knows is really good at making trippy looking vinyl, and
That's one of the things I did here though, that split color, when you split the colors, i.e. they're taking that puck and making two, it's not going to be the exact every time, kind of like
yeah,
a splatter is going to be. But I'd heard that sometimes there's an audible click noise when it goes through each of those colors.
I heard that too.
I thought I had a split one. I've got an Alexi Murdoch Towards the Sun. That's kind of a color and color. It's that same concept with two colors, but it's not a split. And I did read on this one too that as it transitions from one color to the next, that there's usually an audible click in there. I've not picked it up on this one, but that is one concern I think that folks would have, thinking there's a split on your 7 inch there, right?
Yeah, yep, the Dandy Warhols, and I have heard that too. Third Man does a lot of those, and they become highly collectible because they really work to make that split look right, or in three parts.
Yep.
Uh, they say they don't have the clicking issue there, so I've tried to get some, but they're hard to get. Everyone buys those super fast,
And
really
I
fast.
should have pulled it out, but I actually have I've got a Mondo soundtrack from Back to the Future
Mm.
that mimicked that the little triangle of the flux capacitor with three different colors splitting
Cool.
in the vinyl. I think it sounds
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. There's another one, King Buffalo. Again, this kind of trippy stuff, and it's pretty.
That cloudy stuff
Nice
looks,
looking.
it looks cool.
Yeah, it does. It looks cool, and yeah, they do a very nice job with their stuff. And it's just to grab your attention.
It is. One of I think actually, Steve, that this comes down to it too, that colored vinyl can be done correctly, but it's really not so much is the vinyl colored, but who is pressing it. You know, if you get
Good
a
point.
tremendously high quality, reputable plant that's pressing something versus an unofficial or a bootlegger that's pressing for the sake of it's on colored vinyl, you are going to
Thank you,
notice a
Russia.
difference. Yeah. Case in point is music on vinyl.
Uh
And,
huh.
I know that there's other higher end, much higher end, but when it comes down to it, the MoFi stuff is rarely colored. The analog stuff is rarely colored. I think
Yeah.
once in a while they'll do that, but if they're going to be pressing it, they're going to do it with the virgin black vinyl. But music on vinyl, I think, does a great job. This copy I've got of "Couldn't Stand the Weather" from Stevie Ray Vaughan is on marble colored vinyl,
Hmm.
and it absolutely, it's kind of like a silvery marble. Nothing wild about it, but this thing sounds like any other music on vinyl pressing that you would get, just clean and crisp and deep and rich. No problems with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And music on vinyl, typically their first runs when they do a reissue is done on colored vinyl, some
Sure.
kind of marbled, and then later pressings they'll do it on black. The colored ones obviously tend to hold their value, especially from
Yeah.
MOV.
To your point, Vinyl Me Please. Vinyl Me Please does a lot of coloring, and generally the sound quality is very good. This is the Creedence Clearwater that they recently did. This thing sounds so incredibly good. I mean, it just even my ears noticed it. They go, "Wow, wow, that thing sounds great." But they do almost all their stuff comes in colored vinyl. Some of their jazz doesn't. Even some of their blues, but especially the rock stuff does, and that stuff sounds fantastic.
You just reminded me too that it was just a couple of weeks ago that they reissued all of the CCR catalog, each one of them on a different colored vinyl. We sold a few
Yeah.
here at the store. I heard from one of our customers that there was a slight quality control issue with a little waviness in the vinyl, i.e., they probably got it done, but it's nothing terrible. It's nothing that was going to ruin the experience. But I've heard
Hmm.
nothing to indicate that there was problems with the sound of the pressing from each of those. But
Yeah.
that's definitely the trend, isn't it? To
Hmm.
reissue things, especially on colored vinyl.
Well, and even more local bands. It is. I'm going to show this. This is Michael Christensen.
Oh yeah,
You
yep.
know, which a good friend of ours, and we know in the VC, and his last album he had colored vinyl. So, and this is, he didn't put out tons of pressings on that, but he was able to do it. And I meant to get a hold of him before this just to find out, is there a lot of difference in price? Does colored vinyl cost a lot more to do than black, or is it very, very similar? Because now these pellets that come in, I mean, they're just little tiny pellets that come in, they melt them in. And so you toss the different colors in there and they melt. So like it's not like super expensive to get this colored stuff.
Yeah, and I remember talking with our friend Brett Mitchell, released an album a couple of years ago that
Hmm.
was on colored vinyl, and he got to choose the color of that. And it was, I think, a little more expensive, but nothing tremendous. Now, several years ago, probably 10 years ago, some other folks I know here, a band called Brody and the Bush Road Trio, out of Frankenmuth, oddly enough, too, from the first real cool band from Frankenmuth that's not a polka band. Um, when they pressed their album, they did a GoFundMe to help fund that, and they actually said that it was cheaper for them to go through the label that was pressing there, the plant that was pressing it, if they just said random color. So that was kind of indicating that the plant had leftover stuff that said, if you let us use this up a little bit, you'll get a discount, but you don't get to pick the color. It's just going to be kind of random. And the one that I got came out kind of pinkish, which was still
Okay.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that.
That is who?
This is. It is. It's called the Amazing Digital Circus Original Pilot Soundtrack.
Okay.
So I got this by accident and wasn't supposed to get this. Didn't want it. No, but it came in and just said, "Oh, we'll just keep it." So, all right, I will. But sure say it's not my music.
It's not your
It's like,
style.
no, no. It's like I go, oh yeah, really? Someone really wants that, huh? But it's damn cool vinyl.
It looks cool, but you're just going to look at it.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Maybe in 10 years from now, I'll go, wow, that really is nice.
Any other cool ones to show off as well while we're coming down
Oh,
the tail end here?
yeah. What was this one? This is the orb from last year. That's pretty cool. Yeah, just again, some of that neat stuff. This is Fuzz Club again, orbs from Fuzz Club. Fuzz Club does a lot of colored
Yep.
variants in vinyl, and it looks really, really neat. So that's all I really need to show. There's so much colored vinyl. As you know, when Jim said, "Hey," about this idea, I thought, okay, yeah, that sounds easy. Thing is, I can't remember what my coolest colored variants are because there's so much of it. It used to be a rarity.
Yep.
Now it's like, yeah, all right.
I've got one more to show, and this is it borderlines colored vinyl, but it's not really colored vinyl, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. You know it, you love it. We almost made it through an episode without talking about Dark Side, Steve.
I
But
was going to show that, and I did. I thought Jim's going to do that.
you know me too well. But yeah,
Yeah.
this one was that really neat concept. It's clear vinyl, but they did a pressing on one side only of this so that they could print reverse. And I forget what the process was called. It's not a picture disc per se.
No.
It still counts as colored vinyl. And let me turn the spam call off here because that's what that is. But yeah, this thing sounds phenomenal. You would not know that if there was problems with clear vinyl or whatever the types of printing that they did on that reverse printing process, you wouldn't be able to tell one way or the other that there was an issue. And it's double album now, and each of them have a little bit of a different style through that
Yeah.
clear vinyl. Definitely a favorite
Yeah.
of the past couple of years.
That's kind of the next wave, it seems now. I think that will be happening. It's got to be more expensive because it's so precise with that and the way they make it. But I could see more of that happen. In fact, I guess I would have figured I would have seen more already, quite honestly.
I think I don't have a problem with that at all, as long as it is done artistically and with purpose. I guess that's my
Yeah.
big point with this. If
Agree.
you are pressing a record and making it a colored vinyl just because, hey, everybody's buying colored vinyl, we got to get in on this. Okay, maybe that's there too, but they overdo it a lot with the multiple variants of things that
Oh
you
my
can
God,
come out. There's
yes.
5 different choices. It drives me nuts because all that is it's meant to reel that super fan in and say,
Mhm.
well, I guess I better buy all 5 variants of this one just to
Yeah.
make sure that I get it. And I'm not certain what's going on here because we're not open. I apologize for that, Steve.
That's all right.
We'll go from there. This is how you know we record these live, by the way, but not live
Yeah.
there, but live to tape.
Yeah. Hey, summer's coming up, Jim. You know what happens? My phone starts going like nuts too. So
You're going
hey,
to go a
that's
little
okay.
crazy over the next couple of months here, I would think as well. But
Yeah.
I guess to wrap up, I'd like to ask, what you folks think. I can, from the standpoint of the ownership here at the store and the customers I see coming in, people love colored vinyl. They want to make sure that the copy they get is a cool variant. Maybe they don't get more than one, but they want the coolest version. The indie exclusives, for
Yeah.
example, when an album is reissued or a new album is coming out, the black vinyl is the standard, or maybe there's a different color one that's the standard. But then there will be an indie exclusive colored variant, which is only available through stores like ours, which then makes it, I think, a little more attractive for people knowing that they can't get this one at a Walmart or a Target or whatever. But the bad side of that is that now they're saying, okay, here's your Target variant color. Here's your
Yes.
Walmart. Here's your Barnes and Noble variant color. Here's your
Hmm.
Bucky's gas station variant
Yeah.
color of this.
True.
Bucky's doesn't sell vinyl that I know of, so we'll go there.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't either, but I think you get my point on that. If it's done with purpose and artistically, I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. everyone does have it, and again, we're working in a large corporate environment for so many years. Yes, you want to have exclusive, because even back then we would do exclusive CDs, we
Yep.
would do exclusive vinyl. Just this track is special. That's on yours, which obviously is to make people want to get that and to
Yep.
come in and buy it. And it works. It does work. It especially for completists that really want to have it all.
Again, you never think you'd reach the day when you get a black vinyl release from someone and say, "Really, really, wow, this is
Yeah,
just black. That's oddity."
weird. Yeah,
Weird.
yeah. What's up with that?
And you're always. I've got a couple of customers who are purists that say they don't want colored vinyl at all. They just
Mhm.
don't want to deal with it. They think it's inferior, and that's cool. If they want to do that and they just want to stick with the black vinyl, that's cool. But I think the majority of folks right now are into this trend, and that's why it's continuing.
Yeah, it is, and it's why it's gotten bigger and bigger, and with the limits, it's just to create that excitement,
Yeah.
and it's just part of the hobby, creating excitement in every. I just remember baseball cards doing that. Just this variant and this variant, same card. We just change our variants.
Do you have a preference out of curiosity?
I, you know what, the colored vinyl's fine. If there's a independent, for the independent store colored vinyl, chances are I'm going to go for that. Generally speaking, and the price oftentimes is the same,
Hmm. Most
or
of the
one or
time it
two
is.
dollars
Yep.
more.
I'm with you on that too. And I think I've already kind of explained if it's artistic and it matches. That Bob Mold, case in point, I love that record. And I think that the color variant and the cool factor of the way it looks draws me in further to that and
Yeah.
it wants to make me put it on the table more often just so I can see that cool variant spinning. And then the more I listen to it, the more I dig the music. So maybe that's part of the play of this too.
Hmm.
But that Bob
Agreed.
Mold's
Yeah.
cool. Not that I'm trying to sell
Okay.
you one.
Everyone, Jim's going to sell me one. You know that, right?
2 weeks, Steve's going to have, here's my
Yeah.
recent pickups. It's some new
Yeah.
Bob
Exactly.
Mold.
Yep.
Well, cool. Let us know what you think, folks, in the comment section on either the Spotify page or episode or the YouTube channel. The Facebook page is out there as well. Two guys talking about records. So onward we go, Steve, into the week 2 of our tournament. Let's see where we go with
Hmm.
this great eight great
Yeah.
albums. I'm getting all mixed up. Again,
Great eight.
Grade
Yes.
8. Again, we're not encouraging gambling on our tournament, but
What
if
if
you
you
need
do it?
to,
That's up to you.
if you do, go for it. The DraftKings hasn't contacted you, have they?
Yeah, no, not quite yet, but maybe after last week with some of that excitement that happened,
There we
could
go.
have.
Place your bets now. Head over to the episodes, look for that link, and I think that'll about do it this week, won't it, Steve?
I think so.
All
Got it
right,
all
sir.
covered. Now I got a lot of pick records to put away again. Which
I do
really
too.
didn't.
And apparently, I need to answer a phone. I'm going to guess it's because someone didn't adjust their clock this weekend.
Ah,
We should have
yes.
been open by now. Oops.
Yep. Which is why I was up at 3 a.m.
There we go. All right. Well, you folks have a great week. You have been watching and listening to two guys talking about records. Lots of records this week. I love it because that's going to make that playlist really pop. But until next time, my name is Jim, and I own a record store. I got to get it opened an hour-ish here.
Yep. And I'm Steve, a record collector.
You have a great week, Steve. Thanks again.
Hey, you also. Bye, everyone.